And
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matala, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
and welcome to episode number 176 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 37 from March 19th, 2003. My name is Aria. Joining me, as always, is my co-hostess with a co-mostess. It's Cyndi. Wait, no, it's not. Cyndi, unfortunately, could not be here this week. Work sucks, and unfortunately, she couldn't make the show work this week. So for 1 week and 1 week only, as he has vowed to never, ever, 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 never, never, ever, never, ever, ever allow me to convince him to watch this show again, I am joined by my Tuesday and Thursday co-host. It's Trae. Trae, are we still friends?
You know, this is weird. It's like when you see your math teacher at the grocery store. It's just wrong. Trey on the Wednesday show. What the fuck? What is this? A
Yes.
crossover episode?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to have Cyndi on Smoky Mountain someday just to really even things out.
I want to hear her thoughts on Tim Horner.
Actually, knowing her sensitivities as opposed to yours and I's, she may quit the podcast and never come back. At which point, I'd need you to be the full-time TNA person.
She might she might not make it through one Cornette promo.
She might not make it through you and I for one episode.
Oh well, well.
So,
What are you gonna do?
indeed. So yeah, we're talking about TNA now. Trae, I know you haven't been watching along with us for some reason for the last 9 months, but have you ever watched these TNA weekly pay-per-views before?
Uh, I I started in like 2022. I was gonna do the 20 years ago,
Hmm.
and I made it like 6 or 7 weeks before I got sidetracked. Haven't seen a lot of the other weekly shows, but like at the time that these shows were airing, I would diligently every Wednesday night I would be on usually like onewrestling.com getting those results.
Hmm. I when I was in college, it was the fall of 2003. I for some reason I was just like drawn to see what happened in TNA that week. And so I would log on to nwatna.com every Thursday morning to see what the results were.
Yeah, it was okay. At this point, like it had already been over a year of the monopoly, and well, some of us already didn't like it.
Oh yeah. And it's hilarious because like you look back at it now, you're like, oh man, 2003 was a great year to like WWE because they had this guy and that guy and that guy. But then I'm like, you did not live through 2003.
Okay,
Like, different strokes for different folks and everything, but 2003 sucked. Yeah.
2003 was not a great year to follow WWE if you only got Raw and not SmackDown like I did.
Even SmackDown, like everyone like fantasizes the SmackDown 6, but the SmackDown 6 was 2002. 2003 was when Edge was out for a year, Kurt Angle was out for a while, and they broke up everybody else. Chavo was out for a while, and like it was not like, this great run that people think of because you look at the talent, you're like, oh well, John Cena was there. Oh, and Brock Lesnar was the WWE champion, and this, that, and the other thing. It's like it really wasn't as good as it just looks at on the surface. And to be
Do
honest,
you
even looking at it just on the surface really isn't that great either.
do you remember Judgment Day 2003? It was Brock and Big Show in a stretcher match.
I do.
It was pretty entertaining.
There was also the first and I think only time that in WWE Hulk Hogan pinned Roddy Piper.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I know. I know it was the first time. In fact, I mean, it would have to be the only time because he didn't wrestle again after that because Piper was the only person to ever get away with refusing to do a job for Hogan in the 80s. And, when you are a draw, Vince gives you certain leeway, and Piper was a draw, you know?
Yes, yes, he was.
So before we dive into NWA TNA episode number 37, what I like to do is kind of an offshoot on what I do on the Thursday show, where I dive into the Wrestling Observer to tell you what behind the scenes TNA news there is. Because the first 6 or 7 months of the show, I was going through Jerry Jarrett's book, but Jerry Jarrett's book ended at the end of 2002. And unfortunately, the Observer is not full of great backstage TNA news the last few weeks, but we do have a little bit. Now, last week's show, Trae, now they're at the Nashville Fairgrounds Arena, seats like 1,000 people, and they were letting in people for free by and large. But then last week they decided that there's going to be two lines, a line for people paying for their tickets and a freebie line. And the freebie line doesn't get in until after the dark matches have already started. So if you wanted to see the entire show, you had to go pay for your ticket. And this led to about 700 people paying for their tickets last week. And so you were left thinking, hey, this company might be on a little bit of an upswing. Well, this week, a combination of bad weather and, according to some, the news of the U.S. going to war with Iraq, leaving people at home to watch the news, led to only about 125 people buying tickets to this week's show. And before they let all the freebies in this week. Dave also estimates buys a little lower than what he was estimating last week, saying right now they're looking at 11,000 to 13,000 buys a week. And during the one show a month that they do live in Australia, they do about 15,000 buys. And this was the week that they were on in Australia. And do you know the story about that? Did I tell
No,
you that?
no.
Okay. So Australia gets one live pay-per-view a month. However, starting this, it was either January or February, they began airing the shows from the beginning on free TV. So the build to the one
Huh.
pay-per-view they have a month is watching those god-awful shows from June and July of last year.
That's
What
yeah,
what what
tremendous. Tremendous.
what did we do to Australia to make them deserve to do this to them? Also,
You know,
Armando, go ahead.
no, don't go ahead.
Okay. Well, Armando Quintero debuted and announced two matches in Spanish with Conan, and he would go on to become TNA's official Spanish announcer. And I think he had the job for like a decade too. So it's like he was there for a while.
Yeah.
But with that, Trae, I know you're not excited about this, but we can't end the show if we don't begin the show. So let's get on to the show. And it starts. And again, I just told you this. I don't know if it was just this day or like the previous day or two, but America had just declared war on Iraq. Um,
The invasion began the day after this show. The invasion began March 20th.
okay. Well, it's like so it was, you know, it was the key thing in the news at this point. And so the show begins with Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the ring. Yes, that Hacksaw Jim Duggan, telling France and Germany to stay out of our way as we go to a war with Iraq and Afghanistan. He also managed to put down the Dixie Chicks and then led the crowd and Don West, who doesn't know his microphone can be muted, in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hated the stupid brain dead bullshit. This is the early stage of the brainless nationalism that has destroyed this country in the last 20 to 25 years. Which leads me, maybe I want to write an article how Jim Duggan contributed to the decline and fall of the American Republic.
I guarantee that would be a must read. You must write that. You're not doing anything this weekend, are you?
Well, I have plans to, well, maybe I shouldn't say that's evidence.
Okay. Um, so my favorite part about this is, bringing up the Dixie Chicks, and bringing up France just reminded me of how we changed the fucking name of French fries to Freedom Fries because
That's
we're that spiteful.
that sounds like some dumbass bullshit somebody would come up with today.
Gulf of America, anyone? Anyway, we get the opening video package, and they did one thing right. Now, last week, D'Lo Brown debuted, and he had a pretty good debut. The crowd was really into him, and they took to him as a star. And it's like, hey, if we get the 1998, 1999 D'Lo Brown, this could be a big fucking deal, for TNA. We're going to get that D'Lo Brown. Then he beat up Sonny Siaki, which is great. That's what they showed here. They showed D'Lo beating up Sonny Siaki. And then D'Lo Brown throughout the show got his ass kicked on two different occasions and had to get saved by Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett. Well, they at least only showed the D'Lo beating up Sonny Siaki part during this music video. So we'll call that a win.
If I didn't know better, I'd think whoever booked the show was fucking stupid.
Geez, what gave you that idea?
Empirical
Uh,
evidence.
Now, with that, welcome to week 2 of the Glenn Gilbertti main event push.
Oh my
Because,
god. I almost fucking quit. It's oh my god. Okay, so we had the stupid fucking Jim Duggan segment, and then we had this long ass video, and I appreciate the video, but this is a Russo book show, so they throw so much bullshit at you in the video all at once that if you happen to be a new viewer, like I am this week, you can't really follow what the fuck is going on. But and then so though the Duggan and the VTR were like 7 minutes. And the next fucking thing I see is goddamn Disco Inferno in the ring to do a monologue. And that was at the
yes,
point that I messaged you that I quit.
yes, because now that Vince Russo has quit TNA, quote unquote, quit TNA, um, fucking Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilbertti is the mouthpiece. He is the leader of Sports Entertainment Extreme. Um, And hitting the ring at this point are Gilbertti, Siaki, and the Harris twins. Uh, Glenn calls out D'Lo Brown and is angry because D'Lo did not accept an invite to join SCX last week. D'Lo comes out with a chair. Siaki apologizes for the shenanigans, but D'Lo refuses to shake his hand. Glenn introduced himself as they'd never met before and spoke about how D'Lo Brown was promised a world title match when he joined TNA, and that's why Jeff is going out of his way to become friends with D'Lo. Jarrett is afraid of D'Lo, and now D'Lo is fighting Jeff's fights for him. So, Glenn
Yeah,
Gilbertti, the voice of reason.
the voice. God, shut the fuck up. Oh my god.
Well, I told Cyndi this before. I tried watching these shows about 10 years ago. I made it until June because even though all the evidence was pointing at me that this is what was going to happen, I refused to believe that they were actually going to do Disco Inferno in a world title match on pay-per-view. And that's when I quit, when it became like, okay, they're really fucking doing this.
Yeah. If I listed every reason the segment sucked, we'd be here all night. So I'll leave it at one reason. One of the key ideas of this segment is that WWE is the major league and this place is a joke. And It just
Well, oh,
the,
that's not
the
just the
thing
key
of
thing of the segment. That's the key story of this
okay,
promotion.
yeah, I believe you. I believe you completely. This company has never, for a single second, not from the first segment of the first weekly pay per view to whatever the last segment of last week's Impact was, this company has never not been TNA.
Um, what's well
There is
when
a
Russo was on here doing his shoot promos every week he'd make some comment about all the big stars in WWE. And it's like he talked about Stone Cold and The Rock and DX and Goldust. And just to remind you that they're all on the other show that you can watch for free, not this show that we're making you pay $10 a week for.
so there was a trio of wrestlers featured on this show that were David Flair, Brian Lawler, and Eric Watts.
The
And
next
today,
generation.
the next generation. Okay, today kept calling him the next generation, and that's a stupid fucking name. I had originally dubbed them unnamed faction of disappointing second generation wrestlers, but that was a little too wordy. Then I thought of a much better name. Are you ready for this?
I am.
The Unfortunate Sons.
Ah, that is a great name. The Unfortunate Sons.
Thank you. I was very proud of that.
So before they came out, Jeff Jarrett came out and said that Glenn is full of shit. Jarrett ran Russo out of TNA, but now the ass has taken over. D'Lo was told that he needs to trust Jeff Jarrett. D'Lo is tired of trusting people and said that Disco is making sense, and he wants to know where his title shot is. Jarrett said he will get his title shot, but he wants a handout now. I don't know why it's a handout since that was part of his contract negotiations. Anyway,
Do,
the aforementioned unfortunate Sons ran out, and we had a 7-on-2 beating of Jeff Jarrett and D'Lo Brown. Hold the fucking presses, because Jeff Jarrett actually sold here. He did not single-handedly run off all 8 guys.
do you
So,
think? I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. Go ahead and
I
finish
was
because
like,
we haven't got to
SE,
the.
yeah, SEX beat on Jarrett as the next generation beat on D'Lo. Dusty Rhodes ran in for the save, but Dusty Rhodes got overpowered by the Disco Inferno. And before you concentrate on him being overpowered by main event Glenn Gilbertti, listen to the first half of the sentence. Dusty Rhodes ran to the ring for the save. This was not me being facetious. He ran to the ring to make the save. I don't remember ever seeing Dusty Rhodes run ever, but he ran here. So Chris Harris and James Storm ran in to make it 7-on-5, but they also got beaten down. And finally, Ron Killings made his long-awaited return to actually make the save as he joins with the other 5 and the 6 members of TNA run off the 7 members of SEX and the next generation.
Do you think that 17, 18-year-old Cody was watching this?
I don't believe it for a minute. I believe he was trying to get ready to move to LA to become an actor.
I just wondered if this was a thing that provoked that Twitter tirade back in
Which
2018.
I do not
The,
remember a Twitter
the
tirade.
oh, it's not really a tie. It was fucking. It was a dunk. Cody dunking on Disco. You know, you have to know the
Oh,
tweet. That tweet.
I probably do, but I mean, it's been
Oh,
7
hold
years
on.
and I'm old.
All right, hold on. I'm
Well,
gonna find it because it's really worth it. It's worth it.
while you're looking that up, I'm going to note that I thought Brian Lawler had ECW written on his ass for some reason, but later on I
Yeah,
realized it was Echo.
that was
Because
confusing.
yeah,
Okay, This was April 2nd, 2018, and this was a quote tweet of at the Real Disco, who said, "Nobody knows how to quote unquote work anymore. They would rather kill each other to get at Dave Meltzer one to put their match over. That is a problem that needs to be put front and center. Guys are going to keep getting hurt." And Cody replied, "Stop. You know nothing. You have drawn $0. No fan has ever left the show thinking about you. You were lucky to be a juiced up double lifer, quote unquote, over with the boys type in an era where you hid in plain sight, coasting on other success. Couldn't hang then, can't get booked now."
I kind of remember that now, but yeah, that's tremendous. That just popped
No,
me.
I
I,
I think
I
about
will say,
that at least every other day.
the funny thing is like Disco Inferno, like when he's actually tried, he can actually I mean, he's not a great wrestler. He's not even Alex Wright level of wrestler, but he's certainly a perfectly competent wrestler when he's actually trying to have a good match. The problem is, and we've seen it here in some of his matches with Mike Sanders as a teammate. First of all, his teammate is Mike Sanders. But secondly, it's like the gimmick is they're not trying because they're not pro wrestlers, they're sports entertainers. And yeah, we'll see more of that on this show.
I would rather watch a Tim Horner versus Max the Missing Link best of seven series than
I bet
another
that
goddamn Disco Inferno tag match.
I bet Tim Horner versus Max would actually be a good match.
Here's the thing. We make fun of Horner, but we admit that Horner has redeeming qualities. Fuck Disco Inferno. I ain't saying shit positive about
Yeah.
that dumbass. I By the way, the only credit to our truth, the only good part of this whole segment was when Heavy D and Big Rod tried to give him the H bomb and he drop kicked them both at the same time.
Yes. And this is actually the Truth's return after like
Oh,
2 months.
oh, didn't
Um,
realize.
yeah, you know that stupid interrogator segment they did later on in the show with I
Oh
think it
my
was
god,
Conan.
yes,
Yeah.
it was so
So
stupid.
they did that with Ron Killings, and they were doing a storyline that Ron may or may not be on the side of Vince Russo, and the Truth basically told Tenay and West to fuck off, and hasn't been in the company since.
Valid.
Yeah. Um. So then we're now 20 plus minutes into the show, into total nonstop action. Is it time for a match? No. It's time for an earlier today segment. Earlier today, Raven cut a promo surrounded by plunder, previewing his match with AJ Styles tonight. Did you have anything to say about this one?
No, I did not. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I noted that he was sitting in the ring, in the Clockwork Orange House of Fun, and he talked about AJ Styles, and it was a Raven promo.
Well, we then get our first match 25 minutes into the show. NWA World Tag Team Champions Triple X versus the Disciples of the New Church with Jim Mitchell. I'm starting to wonder if, because you were on the show, if this was going to be a Smoky Mountain, reunion show here.
Hey,
We have
I did.
the Harrises.
I thought that when the Harrises and D'Lo were in the first segment, and then it was Brian Lee and James Mitchell, and then there was somebody else later, wasn't there? Moondog
Oh,
Spot.
yes. Yeah, yeah. So, like Russo knew we were going to be talking about this show in nowadays and had to merge all of everything into one. I don't know why we didn't have Horner on the show, but he may have been on Explosion or something. Um,
Yeah.
but they had Borash do the main event introductions for this match. And I know you were not a fan of young Mr. Borash, are you?
Uh, I always thought that he was fine as an interviewer. Friendly guy, really great at those pre-tapes that he's been doing in WWE for years. Utter fucking dog shit ring announcer.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like it's TNA that, and Borash said it on one of the TNA DVDs back in the day. It's like there wasn't a very big crew, so everyone wore multiple hats. And honestly, like unless you're going to do like how Tony Schiavone used to do Jim Crockett ring announcing sometimes during the big events, unless you're going to do something like that and have Tanay do it, or even Don West, I bet would have been a pretty good ring announcer. There really wasn't anyone that they had that they could have done it better than Borash, probably.
Well, it
You
wouldn't have been
know,
TNA if there wasn't a terrible ring announcer.
nope. And I mean, at this point, Borash is still young and pretty, so he at least is slightly better than some of our other young and pretty ring announcers.
Yeah,
So
Pinzer doesn't come until they're on fucking Spike, do they? Does he?
correct, because I think because Shane Douglas was the backstage announcer, and then Shane went to rehab, so someone had to do the backstage announcing. So Borash was doing both for a while, and then that's
Yeah.
when they brought in Penzer.
Yeah, that was an improvement. Needless to
Yeah.
say.
Yes. Um, so they don't mention during this match that it was actually a match between Triple X and the New Church that led to the tag titles being held up about 6 weeks ago. And the match starts. It goes about 3 minutes. You might be wondering because we said Triple X. Triple X is three people. So you might be wondering which two of the three are in the match. Well, it took about 3 minutes to figure that out because for 3 minutes we had what was essentially a 3-on-2 handicap match. Slash did a giant flip dive over the top rope to the floor. So fucking Brian Lee did the exact same goddamn thing. That is one big motherfucker. Um,
Yeah. Yes, he is.
yeah,
Speaking of big motherfuckers, you know what I thought of during this match?
Loki
What
is not a
if
big motherfucker.
I no, but don't tell him that he don't know. But
No,
I used to have a miniature dachshund who didn't give a fuck and would straight up get in a bigger dog's face if he got in their space. That's what Loki is.
I thought you were going to say that his name was Kaval.
Oh yeah. What if? Do you think the disciples of the new church might have had more success here in NWA TNA if Jim Mitchell had brought in his old charge Prince Karras?
Maybe, maybe. I mean, what the hell was he doing in 2003? Uh,
I can't imagine. I can't imagine he was doing much of anything. But yeah, okay.
so, so like
They
an
made a
hour
big
into,
deal.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. They made a big deal out of not knowing who was who in the match, and I chalk that up to Don West dipshittery because okay, the opening of the match is Key and Skipper attacking Lee and Slash while Daniels doesn't. And then like
Yeah,
Daniels
I,
did get involved in a couple of spots, like he caught the big Brian Lee dive, but he wasn't like really like it was very obvious from the opening moment that Key and Skipper were meant to be the legal participants in the match.
yeah, but I mean, Daniels was getting involved quite a bit. It wasn't even just the catching Brian Lee thing. Daniels was a pretty frequent participant until, the giant five-way brawl broke down into a tag team match.
Yeah. By the way, have you ever talked about the origins of Triple X on the show? The idea behind it?
Um, Maybe not. I mean, we talked about it as it was formed, but what are the origins of Triple X?
Oh, so just at the time, Christopher Daniels was working for New Japan. Elix
Yep,
Skipper was working for All Japan, and
yep,
Loki was working for Zero One.
yep.
So the idea was they would always be on tour at different times. So the
Hmm.
idea was that they made him a three-man team, there would always be two there. And
Which
it ends up
never
almost
really
always.
worked out.
No, I think that low key probably did some low key shit and got in the doghouse, and then it ended up always pretty much always being Daniels and Skipper. But that was the idea
Well,
behind it.
well, part of it, like, I mean, that was a great idea, but the part of the problem was all three of them were getting a lot of Japanese commitments all simultaneously. And part of the reason why they vacated the tag belts and put off the finals of the tournament for as long as they did was because they couldn't get two people into the country at the same time for weeks. Like
Yeah,
AMW won the first part of the tournament in like the middle of February, and then the title match didn't happen until last week because it was like At one point, I think Daniels did a WWE tryout. Spoiler alert, he didn't get hired somehow. But also, TNA is in the middle of offering Chris Daniels uh, well, as full time as you're going to get in TNA at this point, with a raise to scale back his Japanese commitments. And well, I don't think he ever actually leaves New Japan entirely until later on. He does at some point accept that deal.
Yeah, he's still there well into 2004, I know. But yeah, he
Yeah.
does he ends up being around more. And see, did I have anything else about this? Uh
So,
this match was pretty decent, and it was almost
yeah.
entirely thanks to Triple X doing cool shit and making the other guys shit look good.
Now we say that. Now, oh well, let me just talk about the match, and we'll get to the end there. But Low Key tries to get the Dragon Sleeper on primetime Brian Lee, but Lee throws Key into the referee. Everyone goes for their finishers, but it keeps being blocked until Lee hit a whirlybird powerbomb. Skipper gave Slash the play of the day on a tag belt when Malice of all people returned. Malice,
Yes,
aka the Wall,
that's
hit
the
the
wall,
ring.
brother.
Yes, he hit the ring, he hit his power bomb on Skipper, and then the choke slam on Low Key. That was not the disqualification. However, Malice then choke slamming the referee was the disqualification. The Harrises the Harrises walked to the ring and just stared at the New Church until the New Church's theme played, and Mike Tenay announced that Triple X won by DQ. Now, who knows what any plan really was, but they've now had two matches, and this is TNA where they do a lot of bullshit, and very rarely do they not have a winner and a loser in a match. Of all the things you want to say about TNA, and you can say a lot of shit about TNA, they let a lot of shit go, but there's almost always somebody gets pinned, somebody submits, and somebody wins the match. However, these two matches between the Disciples and Triple X have both had two wonky non finishes. And so I'm starting to think that the new church might be putting up a bit of a fuss about doing jobs to the little people. Um,
That sounds like was it Slash
PG
not
13.
the yeah, not Bill Dundee's on the other one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolfie D, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, anyway, we've talked about this for weeks and months that the best episodes of TNA start with a really hot X Division match. And while this wasn't quite an X Division match, because Primetime Brian Lee is not anybody's thought of an X Division wrestler, this was still, I thought, a damn good match. New Church is obviously the third best team in the company at this point, but they have proven time and again that they can more than hold their own with the two top duos, Triple X and AMW. And honestly, I would have given this match a higher rating with a real finish, but I
Yeah.
gave it a higher than usual 6.5 out of 10.
That sounds about right. I don't know if this happens, but I have such a perverse desire to see Loki versus the Wall.
I don't, I think the closest you're going to get is next week's match, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But I'm pretty sure next week is a Malice Leaves Town match, which says
Oh.
something because Malice isn't exactly a regular on the show
Uh,
anyway.
he's only got
Which,
about 9 months to live too.
yeah, because isn't he in All Japan too at this moment?
Yes.
See, this is why it's nice to have our pure Resu expert on this show every so often.
I don't know about
Uh,
expert, but I,
um,
I, I, I
well,
I read the text. I do my research.
my expertise of Japanese wrestling is 2013 to 2020 New Japan, and Cyndi, I don't think knows that Japan's a country.
Here's the
I
thing.
love you, Cyndi.
During it was during this period, 2003, 2004. I was like a junior and senior in high school, and we were getting about over a year into that WWE monopoly, and I was getting so fucking bored. So that was the point that I like started scouring the internet for like NWA, TNA, and Ring of Honor. But that was the point that I started like just inhaling all the Japanese news and wrestling results. So I'm a son of a bitch when it comes to early 2000s pro wrestling. The darkest
Uh,
period, the darkest period in the history of pro wrestling. I have a special fondness for.
I kind of started getting into new Japanese wrestling in general when in like 98, 99, PWI would do a monthly one-page column on
Yeah.
everything going on in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
There
also
was
when I
that.
learned between that and the PWI 500 was when I learned that I cannot pronounce any of their names.
They were on pages facing each other, the Japan report and the Mexico report. Later, they
Yes.
merged it into one and named it the International report.
Yes. And it's funny because like even then, as much as I'd read the Japan report, I didn't really care about the Mexico report.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
looking back, I think the Mexico report was more inside. Like it was more inside than the Japan report was. And I was 13, 14, 15 years old. I didn't understand inside wrestling stuff at that point.
Yeah, I don't really
Um,
remember, but I used to read those. But I don't remember. Yeah.
so earlier today, Mike Tenay had a sit-down interview with Eric Watts where he asked Eric Watts various questions, and Eric Watts just didn't bother to answer any of them. He talked about how he was held down after Bill Watts got fired from WCW. And thus I asked the question, if wrestling is real, like we're supposed to kind of believe it is, how does anybody get held down in wrestling? If you win matches, you advance. If you lose matches, you don't.
So the other night, I went out with some friends and I got pretty polluted
Uh-huh.
on some beers and some shots. And later that night, we were back at our friend's house, and I just drunkenly laid on the floor for a while, and I was held down to about the same extent that Eric Watts was in WCW.
Did you get put over
Like,
more so than you should have been?
is it the highlight of like the show for you when I start saying something and you're just like, how the fuck is he going to connect this back to the show?
Honestly, most of the time you don't connect it back to this show, so there's that.
Well, okay,
Okay,
sometimes it's
sometimes
not
it's
meant
not
to.
meant.
Sometimes it's just a tangent. But sometimes
Uh,
doing something with it.
okay, okay, okay. All right. So then after the Eric Watts thing, main event Glenn Gilbertti was in the SCX locker room and telling people off. Finally, Mike Sanders walked in 40 minutes late and was being a dick, so Glenn slapped him. Glenn then told Hollywood to show the world Athena's breasts, and the segment was over. Trae, who did you think this random blonde woman was that Glenn told to show Athena's breasts to?
I'm as someone who strives to be a good feminist, I'm not particularly proud of what I wrote here. I just wrote who's the big titty blonde.
Hollywood, who I am more the longer she's on this show, the more surprised I am that she's still on this show because she debuted like 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, well, she's a 1 week wonder. We'll never see her again, and she is still here.
The funny thing is, there was another blonde woman present, and I was aware of this woman, but I didn't quite know that the face and the name belonged together. So at one point, I wrote, blonde-haired woman, and blonde-haired woman turned out, in fact, to be Goldilocks, and that was very funny to me.
Yes. Uh, so would it have been better if she had interviewed the Iron Savages?
I don't think they're. I think one of them isn't persona grata anymore.
I well, allegedly, didn't the charges get dropped against him?
I haven't seen the update, but if they have, I apologize for sullying his good name.
To be fair, that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't do anything, just that the charges got dropped.
That's true.
Um, Earlier today, Mike Tenay and Don West interviewed Conan for the interrogator segment. They've done like half a dozen of these things by now, and they're never any good. Um, he
So
called Jerry
stupid.
Lynn. Sorry, go ahead.
What like I'm sorry, this was so fucking stupid. How the fuck is this an interrogation? They were playing word association and this or that.
You weren't marking out for like that like 2 second highlight of Mike Tenay stroking his beard and Don West looking serious while everyone's wearing all black.
Yeah, but back to the Eric Watts segment, the one part of that I did like was Tanay's face at the end. Today is just so great at conveying how fucking stupid some of this shit is.
He's definitely got a wicked case of Mike Tenay face.
He does. I love Mike Tanay.
So by the way, Conan called Jerry Lynn and Eric Bischoff punk ass bitches, and then stormed out when Mike Tenay pointed out that Conan is over against Jerry Lynn. So
Well, isn't
that,
he over against everybody? He hasn't had a match in TNA yet.
well, yes, but the past month he's been bringing in Mexican wrestlers to wrestle
Ah,
Jerry Lynn, and they've all
okay.
done the JLB. And that
Mm.
includes the 1 week where the three-man team of Conan and the SAT were a thing.
Oh wow,
Yes.
that
Um,
sounds like that sounds like a humdinger.
yes, the SAT. Oh my God. So this goes back to something about Jerry Lynn. So like a month ago, they had, actually it was more than a month ago this month, it's close to 6 weeks ago. They had a number one contenders gauntlet match with like 8 guys in it. Um, and the Maximos were the first two people eliminated from the match. The winner was Jerry Lynn, who, due to winning, would get an X Division title match. Well, two things happened. First, Conan decided to turn heel, well, in his case, continue to be a heel, as he formed a scumbag alliance with the two people who were eliminated first in the match, the Maximos, and Jerry Lynn, 6 weeks later, has still not gotten his X Division title match.
I
And
hate
now
it
they're
when
they're not
I'm
even
sorry.
mentioning it anymore. At least, up until last week, as I was, oh, and Jerry Lynn's got this X Division title match coming up that he gave up so he could wrestle Conan's guys.
Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
So then we get Conan and Juventud Guerrera versus Jerry Lynn and Jason Cross. Now, I know I don't have to mention this to you, Trae, because I know despite what we said earlier, you listen to the show every single week. But in case you didn't listen to the show last week, there was a story behind this. Uh, Jerry Lynn was trying to get TNA to bring back Super Crazy instead of Juventud Guerrera for this tag match because two reasons. One, when they had a singles match a few weeks ago, Juventud was a dick. And then secondly, when they had a four-way match in XPW, Juventud Guerrera was a dick. So Jerry Lynn was trying to get them to use anybody except Juventud Guerrera, and TNA used Juventud Guerrera. Keep in mind they also
I
wanted to use Paul London, and you'll notice that Jason Cross may be many things, but he is not Paul London.
Jason Cross is in fact not Paul London, and yeah, even just for personal preference, I would also rather have Super Crazy over Juventud Guerrera, but that's just me.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, Conan had a great seat to watch some very good wrestling for the most part during this match, as this
Yeah,
was this was essentially a 2-on-1 handicap match for several minutes, which ultimately was for the best. Conan didn't want to be in the match at all until Cross was in the match and was down. Hoovy very reluctantly tagged out. Conan was fine during this little period at first. It's actually easy to forget that he was ever any good because most of the run we've ever seen him in American wrestling was when he was injured and, he had that horrible hip injury here for a few years. Lynn tagged in and Conan shoved Hoovy into Lynn. I note that Conan is sucking wind from the little bit of time he was in there. Cross drop kick Conan and kind of hit the crossfire for a 2 count. Hoovy went for the 450, but didn't rotate all the way over and landed with his ass on Jason Cross. Conan hit the X Factor for a 2 count, and after a series of roll ups, I wrote Conan grabbed the ropes and got the pin. It doesn't say who he pinned, but I think it was Jerry Lynn.
it was Jerry Lynn. Um, yeah, I thought Hoovy was trying because Jason Cross had just did the shooting star leg drop, I thought Hoovy was trying to do a 450 splash as a leg drop. But maybe he just fucked up a 450 splash. I don't know.
I thought he just fucked up before the splash, but you could be right.
Well, maybe.
Um,
But by the way, Conan, I've never particularly enjoyed Conan in ring. But one thing I will always give him credit for, no matter how fucked up he was, how bad a shape he was in, that motherfucker was gonna hit that rolling clothesline.
he loved that spot.
Yes.
Um, he also he was fucking over in WCW as a babyface. Like he wasn't
Well,
Goldberg over,
no,
but like it always
no.
surprised me that he never got even the US title like during the run where he was over. Not like when they first brought him in and no one knew who the fuck he was when he got the US
Yeah.
title. Um, but like 98, 99, like why didn't Conan win the US title?
Yeah, I still don't know what the fuck it means, but toss my salad and peel my potatoes still amuses me.
Doesn't that mean suck my dick?
I okay, toss my salad means something, and I don't think that peel my potatoes refers to sucking. I think Conan said on like I used to listen to MLW radio back in the day, like way back when it was Court Bauer, Conan, and MSL, and I believe he
Okay.
said one time that it was just some nonsense that he said because like
So,
I think like
uh,
I think
okay.
WCW standards of practices were like wanted to know what it meant, and he just like it's just some nonsense.
So according to Google, and take this, for what it's worth, they say it's a slang term indicating the use of one's tongue and lips to suck and penetrate one's anus.
Well, that's what toss my salad means. I didn't know what. Okay, does peel my potatoes also refer to?
I
Look, it
I
this
I don't know. It's probably best to not go down this road here.
look.
This is the this is the
We've already got
G-rated show.
we've already got the perfect name for the show, the Unfortunate Sons. We don't need to keep
Yes.
going until the title of the show is Analingus.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. By the way, I gave that match a 4.0 out of 10.
I gave that match 2.5 stars.
So you liked it slightly more than me. All right. We
Yeah.
then get a video package detailing the Kid Cash and Trinity versus Amazing Red feud. Cash pretty much made his heel turn official here. He said he is the champion. Red walked in and said he doesn't respect Cash, and if it wasn't for Trinity, he wouldn't be champion. Red challenged Trinity. Cash pointed out that she is a girl, and so somehow that was understood as meaning that they should have a three-way dance tonight. I don't remember Kid Cash saying that.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. Amazing Red wanted to go one on one with Trinity, and Kid Cash wanted to have a threesome. Or no, uh, Cash didn't want them to have a one on one because she's a girl, so Red asked to have a threesome instead, and I guess somebody made the
To,
match.
to be fair, I didn't want to see Amazing Red versus Trinity either, so, you know.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
didn't either. Okay, in storyline, do we know who the matchmaker is right now?
no, because Bullet Bob quit back in January. After that,
Was it
after that
Bob?
show where after that show where Goldilocks stalked her or stalked him like for an hour. Um, but yeah, the real story was that he asked for a $50 a week raise and was turned down, and so he quit.
Oh, valid. Respect.
Yes. Up next was the tag team match of the century.
Oh
Which
boy.
century? That we're not sure. Mike Sanders and Main Event Glenn Gilbertti came out, and first, Jim Duggan came out. And you knew something was suspect because not only did Jim Duggan come up by himself, they didn't even say who his fucking partner was. Um, and so SEX beat down Duggan during the entrance. I wrote, I'm not sure what Duggan's partner is waiting for, as Duggan got a thorough beatdown. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's Moondog Spot.
Yes, it
Uh,
was. And it, okay, so Moondog Spot just wanders in with his bone, and Disco is so appalled at having to wrestle Moondog Spot in 2003 that he just fucks off and leaves. And then
Main
Spot
Event Glenn Gilbertti will not put up with these shenanigans.
Spot hits Sanders in the face with the bone. Duggan
Yes.
hits Sanders with the worst looking knee drop ever. The referee refuses to count, obviously, because this is bullshit. Spot threatens him with the bone, and the referee counts. I did love that.
And the referee fast counts too.
Yes. But
Oh,
the only
yes,
the problem with this,
the
why the
problem.
fuck? The,
The
okay,
problem.
why the fuck is West talking about people becoming their characters? They're not supposed to be characters.
Yeah. I was trying to ignore that part.
Sorry.
Yes. Because the, the storyline is that, and I, I mean, they're kind of dropping it since they're putting Disco Inferno as a main event heel, which, yeah, I guess if one good thing comes out of that is they're dropping this stupid gimmick where Mike Sanders and Glenn Gilbertti are the directors of character development for Sports Entertainment Extreme. So it's their responsibility to bring in bad gimmick. Like we had Disgraceland for way too long, and all this other stuff, and that's the joke here that you know that they're giving people stupid gimmicks while instead all of these old school gimmicks are coming in to beat their ass.
Okay, I see how that makes sense from a certain drug-addled and concussed perspective.
And hey, we at least know that Vince Russo is concussed. I don't know about his drug habits. Anyway, I wrote that Spot hit Sanders with his bone. That makes it only
He
slightly
did.
more sexual than you had.
That's what happened.
So so 2 weeks ago on this show, now I mentioned to you last week that America's Most Wanted wrestled for the tag team titles. 2 weeks ago, 1 week before AMW got their tag team title match, AMW lost a tag team match to Mike Sanders and main event Glenn Gilbertti. Now that Jim Duggan and Moondog Spot have defeated Mike Sanders and main event Glenn Gilbertti, does that mean that Jim Duggan and Moondog Spot are now a top two tag team in TNA?
Yes,
Depending on whether or
absolutely.
not
Let's
you
get oh my God, let's
do a
oh,
three-way next week.
I'm not even gonna joke about that. I was gonna say do the Harrises against Duggan and Spot.
So you want Duggan and Spot to like continue moving up the ladder. You don't want them to go right into a tag title match next week. You want them to wrestle the Harrises in order to get a tag title match on the next show.
It's just the worst match that I could ever imagine.
Well, we're watching Smoky Mountain, brother. There's something close to that in the very near future.
Oh, really? Terrific.
Yes. By the way, 0 out of 10 for Jim Duggan and Moondog Spot versus Mike
I
Sanders and main event Glenn Gilbertti.
I like well, likewise rated this a big fat dud. By the way, this is weird for me because I watched this show and then I have to work all day tomorrow, so I went ahead and watched Smoky Mountain. So I have very confused feelings about the Harris brothers right now.
You don't know whether to cheer them or boo them.
Yeah, because I kind of like them in 1993.
Everyone likes people in 1993, especially in Tennessee and North Carolina
Yeah,
and Virginia.
and I felt stupid because I didn't put together until years later that the name is a reference to a bad thing that many wrestlers used to like to do to some unsuspecting young women. But I always thought the H bomb was a pretty cool finisher.
Hmm. I liked it. I like the finisher. Um, I also like Chronic doing high times. Hey,
Yes,
I, hey,
yes.
hey, when I was a kid, I had no idea what chronic meant. I didn't get the reference.
Yeah.
I, I'm going to say something controversial. 15-year-old me liked Brian Adams and Brian Clark as a tag team.
So did I. I was 13, but yes,
Yeah.
all young people roughly our age loved Chronic.
Yeah. It's like I get, especially looking back, they were not the favorite of inside fans, but I'm sorry, like, they were kind of cool as a team. Um,
Yeah, they were.
to the back, where Goldilocks is now with the new church. I mentioned earlier that Lee is a tall dude, but Malice looked like he was about 4 inches taller than primetime Brian Lee, which I don't think is actually true, so I don't know why Malice looked so much taller, but oh
Uh,
well.
I don't know.
Mitchell
What,
Mitchell says SEX are mindless drones who listen to bad advice, and then challenges SEX to an S&M match, which apparently means sadistic madness. So does that make it a sadistic end madness match?
so all I gleaned for this was that the sex people and the church people are going to participate in S&M together.
I mean, they don't tell us what that match is, so that is very possible.
It's
All right. Mhm.
I believe it is essentially what would have been called in other times and places a hospital elimination match. Similar.
Hospitable.
Yeah.
Yes. And apparently it's going to be an 8-man tag. So the new church with 3 people will get a fourth person. I like
See, I
that they
remember
managed to.
somebody.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I remember somebody who's in that match who's only in TNA a couple of times.
So maybe that is the new church's mystery partner. But yeah, the new
Yeah.
church made a challenge for a match where they are at the disadvantage and need to go out and get a partner. Um,
What if what? Hey, what if the partner is Prince Karras? We might overlook something.
there you go. The advantage would swing the other way at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, X Division champion Kid Cash versus Amazing Red versus Trinity. So, yes, we are not only doing this match, but the title is on the line in
Mm-hmm.
case you thought Russo wasn't really booking this shit. Um, so, since Kid Cash and Trinity are technically friends and they've gotten along more than they haven't, why wouldn't the match just be Cash knocking Red down and Trinity laying down for him?
You know, I had the same thought.
They announced Trinity as being from Strong Island, New York, and I wasn't sure if that was a faux pas or if that is her kayfabe hometown.
No, that's just like a nickname for Long Island. Like I can't remember who it was, if it was Justin Roberts or somebody else, but like I used to always announce Trent Beretta as being from Strong Island.
Well, Trinity may not be able to do a lot of things in wrestling, but she knows how to stand in the right spot. She stood there as Cash and Red ran spots around her until Red hit her with a springboard drop kick. So she knows where to stand. She just can't figure out when she should do that. Red and Cash were given a bad match, but they worked it by constantly knocking Trinity down without actually letting her be involved.
Yeah.
So they got to have their actual, normal, very good match. So let it be known that much like David Arquette, Trinity can have a near 4-star match. Just, you knock her out of the way and let everybody else wrestle. Cash went for a top rope power bomb, but Red reversed it into a hurricanrana, which is not just a spectacular spot, but is a spot that Cash uses himself. Trinity goes to the top rope, and Red made her look good with a hurricanrana and a tornado DDT. Somehow, Trinity thus hurt her knee and back, and took about 45 seconds to climb the ropes. So while she was climbing the ropes, Cash essentially did a chaos theory to Amazing Red for the win.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure somewhere in here Don West said inferring when he meant implying, and that's one of my grammar pet peeves. I noted that Kid Cash did the move that is today known as the Ushigoroshi several years before Hiroki Goto invented it and gave it that name.
So what you're saying is Hiroki Goto was watching this episode of NWA TNA and stole his move.
Maybe, maybe he's hey he does come to TNA a couple of times in
Yeah,
'07, '08. So maybe he saw that. By the way, do you know what Ushigoroshi means?
I do not.
It means bull killer.
Means what killer?
Bull.
Bull? Like Vince Russo
Bull.
likes
A male
bull?
cow.
Oh, bull. Look, why does it sound like you're saying
Because
bowl or hole or
uh,
other words that have are an OLE?
yeah. Bull killer because it he invented
he
it
invented
to beat Hiroyoshi Tenzan.
And Hiroyoshi Tenzan is a bull. So,
Indeed.
all right. So surprisingly, when you keep the not fully trained wrestler out of a match, the fully trained wrestlers have a good match.
Yeah, how about
7.5 out
that?
of 10.
I probably would have rated it higher if it had been a little longer, but for a 6 minute match, this was very enjoyable.
Yeah. Backstage, D'Lo and Jarrett are arguing behind closed doors, and they do this every week. And the SEX locker room has the same thing. There is a lock on the outside of the door, like one of those locks you got to stick a key in to open, which I guess is
Hmm.
all locks. But it makes me wonder why we haven't yet had the spot where somebody locks their rivals in the dressing room.
Have we not had that yet? Maybe they're saving it.
No, no.
Hmm.
The I don't say this is the closest we got, but we once got a spot in July where Ken Shamrock brought in the Iron Brit Ian Harrison, and he was the stand guard in front of a door which had all the security guys in it. And eventually, at the end of the show, the Iron Brit walked away for some reason. I think he was wrestling the Rainbow Express, so he walked away to wrestle them. And when that happened, wrestlers ran into the room fighting each other, where they discovered not just all the security geeks, but another door in the background that they could have gotten out of.
Wow. Yeah, I think I remember that episode. That was like one of the first few, right? Of
Yeah.
course, because
I,
Kid Shamrock was
I,
still there.
yeah, I think it was when they were still in the Municipal Auditorium.
Oh, okay, yeah. By the way, I have been to the Nashville Fairgrounds. What a fucking dump.
I've heard that about the place.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think Cultaholic just put up a video about the NWA 70th anniversary show that was at the fairgrounds. That was the one where
Yeah.
Nick Aldis beat Cody for the NWA title. And
Yeah.
honestly, if I didn't know that's where they were, it looked aesthetically, it looked quite good on TV. You know?
I think I heard Conrad say I think when they were talking about the Flair's last match show or whatever that
Yeah.
I think that they may have rebuilt the Fairgrounds Coliseum since I was there last, which would have been 2015. Yeah, 2015.
That's possible. Because yeah, they were going to do the Flair's last match there, but the demand was so great, even for that shit show, that they moved it to the Municipal Auditorium. Because
Yeah,
that was the weekend of SummerSlam in Nashville. And
yeah, it
it's always
was.
kind
That's
of
right.
funny that like like no one ever tries to piggyback on other big events. Because like Royal Rumble, fucking Royal Rumble, it was in Indy this year, and they had what 60,000 people. Why weren't there a whole bunch of like indie shows trying to piggyback on Royal Rumble? Like what may not have been a WrestleMania level thing, but I'd like to think, okay, I bet you could get a bunch of indie shows in here that will draw decently enough, more so than usual.
Well, maybe they think that that another show won't attract that kind of crowd. I don't know. I remember like there was a time that Evolve was running like a lot of WWE pay-per-view weekends and the same thing.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
Royal Rumble 2017 weekend. I went to it was funny. I was outside of the arena and I got into a conversation with some folks, and the young lady said it was her first wrestling show. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. This is my fourth one this weekend because I had been to the two Evolve shows and NXT Takeover.
Now, do you remember what your first wrestling show ever was that you attended live?
Yes, it was a WWE house show. It was the same night as the AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe Unbreakable match. It was September 11th, 2005.
I think we discussed at least mine. I don't remember if we ever discussed yours, but mine was July 2nd, 1992, Port St. Lucie. Actually, it was technically it was Fort Pierce, Florida, at the St. Lucie Convention Center. Main event, a 2-on-1 handicap match. The Undertaker versus Kamala and Mr. Fuji.
You know, I
And
think you win. Uh,
yeah, it also had it
mine.
also had it had Flair versus Savage for the title on the
Oh
undercard.
wow. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That
yeah.
that's I never got to see Flair live. That's kind of a bummer. But
I've
yeah,
seen him a couple times.
mine it was Monroe Civic Center in Monroe, Louisiana, so Mid South country. The main event was it started off as John Cena versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, and then Tomko interfered, so it became a handicap match, and Cena pinned Tomko.
I thought you were gonna say Arya Davari's brother Davari was there.
No, he was not there, nor was Arya Davari.
Do you remember when it might have been the Greatest Royal Rumble where they were in Saudi Arabia and out came Arya and Sean Davari and Michael Cole's like it's
Yeah,
Arya Davari and his brother
Davari.
Davari.
Oh, do you remember there was a certain point that Crash Holly just became Crash? So it was
Yes,
Hardcore Holly and Crash.
yes. Do you remember when oh my God, what the hell was I gonna say? Do you remember something?
I remember several somethings.
Um, oh my God, what the hell was I gonna say? Was oh yeah, do you remember before Chavo Classic was renamed Chavo Classic? He was just Chavo Guerrero Sr. And because Vince
Yeah,
refused to let Chavo Guerrero Jr. be Chavo Guerrero Jr., it was with Chavo Guerrero Sr. is Chavo Guerrero. Oh my God, or
I do.
even better when Ted DiBiase Jr. debuted on the main roster and they had the $1 Million Man come out and introduce him. And he's like, here's my son, Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, but speaking of Chavo Guerrero, on that first show that I went to, one of the matches was Shelton Benjamin defeating Kerwin White.
What does that have to do with Chavo Guerrero? Shelton Benjamin
Well,
is in
Kerwin
Chavo
White,
Guerrero.
no, Kerwin White looked like Chavo if he dyed his hair blonde, and then he just happened to disappear right around the time that Chavo came back and weirdly had blonde hair for that one match against JBL on SmackDown.
I wake up every morning, can't wait to embrace the day.
The one,
I take my coffee by the pool. Let me know this is the first, last, and only TNA podcast that will ever discuss Kerwin White or have anybody sing the Kerwin White team song.
as I look at the card of this show, okay, Edge and Matt Hardy, that was during that feud. Trish Stratus and Ashley Mazzaro against Victoria and Tori Wilson. Big Show against Snitsky, Shelton Benjamin, Kerwin White, Chris Masters against Viscera, Rob Conway against Eugene. And then I'm going to do the opener and then the second match. The opener was the Hurricane and Rosie defending the World Tag Team Championship against Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. The second match was Mike Mizanin losing to the freaking Deacon. Do you remember who the freaking Deacon is, Aria?
Luke Gallows.
Luke Gallows.
Yeah.
First of many gimmicks.
Yes. I always love the story that Vince didn't know that he was Festus when he came
That's so,
back.
that's so funny. Oh,
Um,
that's
um, oh yeah, so you basically, well, except for like the Mizanin match and Chris Masters wrestled Viscera instead of Shawn Michaels, But you basically got Unforgiven 2 weeks or a week or two before Unforgiven, because that was pretty much the card
Yeah.
for Unforgiven.
Yes, it was. Except like it was the next night on Raw that they were doing the Cena against Angle and Tomko handicap match, so they had to do it the night before in the house show, obviously. And also, that was
Obviously.
actually that was actually the night before Trish Stratus returned from injury on TV, so we saw her before TV saw her. Yeah, the one thing that I remember is the Big Show. I remember seeing him do a nip up, I think 3 times ever. One time was the match against the Big Boss Man at Armageddon 1999. The third time was the match against Snitsky at Unforgiven 2005. The second time, believe it or not, was at this fucking house show.
I I believe you, but I don't believe you.
Do I need to
Yeah.
get my friend Dustin on the line again? Because he was there.
Uh, well, he was never actually on the line the first time.
Well, it
You so I've seen Ric Flair wrestle. If we talk about Flair wrestling live, I've seen him wrestling live 3 times. One was the Savage match. One was a 2005 episode of Raw in Wilkes-Barre, PA, when he took on Tomko, because it was supposed to be Christian, but we don't deserve to see Ric Flair versus Christian. So Christian had his problem solver step in for him. And one was a house show against Triple H in Bethlehem, PA. I actually had
yeah,
to look it
I
up because I thought he wrestled at the 2007 draft show that I was at, but at least according to the always reliable cage match, he did not wrestle on that show.
yeah. But if you ever fallen asleep in the second row as the great Sasuke wrestled because it was 2 o'clock in the morning, because I have.
No, uh but I do know that Ultimo Dragon and Yamaguchi-san fell asleep at WrestleMania 7.
Ultimo Dragon and Yamaguchi-san were at WrestleMania. Okay, that does
Yep,
make sense. They were probably there. They were there with Tenru, right?
probably.
Yeah.
But yeah. So by the way, back to the show. Jeff Jarrett, D'Lo Brown, and Dusty
Oh,
Rhodes took on David Flair, Brian Lawler, and Eric Watts with rope.
the wild
Remember?
off-topic rambling has come to the TNA show.
Yes. Cyndi would not go on 20 minutes of rambling when I'm just trying to talk about Jeff Jarrett and D'Lo Brown arguing behind closed doors. Um, so remember when Brian Lawler left this company back in like October because April cheated on him with Miss TNA Bruce?
I
Um,
don't remember that at all.
yeah, well, it happened, and now he's back with no mention of April, Miss TNA Bruce, or any of that, which is probably for the best.
By the way,
Now, did you notice
because
that Borash called Jeff Jarrett the defending NWA champion?
I didn't. I wish I had, because that would have been the third Borash fuck up that I noticed on this show.
Yeah, he does this, and I remember him doing this a lot. Anytime the champion is wrestling, even if it's a non-title match, he will call them the reigning defending champion.
Yeah, no. So the other one was also during this match before the VTR. Tenay said that the match was going to be this trios match, and then
And
after the
that,
VTR,
yeah,
the heels come out and they are announced by Borash as Brian Lawler and David Flair, accompanied by Eric Watts. And then
my
they introduced the three baby faces, and it
yeah,
was just a trios match. So that was when I figured that Borash was the one who fucked up.
my guess, because Borash like he'll fuck up by saying the reigning and defending champion, but Borash doesn't fuck up to that degree. I think it may have been the original plan to do a tag match, and then they decided to do a 6-man instead.
Oh.
Um, but by the way, how was TNA the only company to ever do a D'Lo Brown bobblehead doll? That seemed like a license to
Right.
print money.
By the way,
Um,
so
I will
people
say,
always make fun. I'm sorry. Go ahead. We keep we must have a
you got it.
lag because we're talking over each other worse than normal today.
You go ahead.
Okay, what was I going to say?
I
I
don't
was
know.
going to point out that D'Lo and Bryan started the match with a reprise of the opening of the 2000 Royal Rumble. And I was going to mention, so David has the 10 pounds of gold. And
Hmm.
do you think Rick let him use the real one?
It was probably being held up for a loan to somebody. Um,
Not yet, I don't think. I don't think that was till later.
I'll be honest, like I know Brian Lawler is not the greatest wrestler of all time, but I always thought it was unfair that he's always lumped in with the people who only get where they are because of who their daddy is. Because I mean, okay, fine. I bet Jerry Lawler got Brian his foot in the door. But Brian was good on his own. He did not, oh, maybe he needed Jerry to get in, but he didn't need Jerry Lawler to, be a good wrestler. He didn't need Jerry Lawler to like be the personality that Brian Lawler was, because like Brian Lawler and Jerry Lawler are two very different personalities,
Yeah.
you know.
And if if being Jerry Lawler's son was all it took, Kevin would have been a huge star
Well, I mean, he was just for like 6 weeks in ECW.
before he was kidnapped by Michael Jackson.
Yes. Poor Freddie
By
Gilbert.
by the way, one other note: people always make fun of the shitty TNA entrance music from this period, but Dusty's track is pretty solid. Suits him well.
So David Flair, he sucks. He will never not suck. He had 4 matches on pay-per-view with Jerry Lynn, where it's impossible to have a bad match with Jerry Lynn. And David Flair had bad matches with Jerry Lynn. Um, Eventually, Watts and Lawler accepted defeat as Jarrett got the hot tag, and so they let David tag in for what was the first real time during the match he was in. Dusty got in about 5 seconds of offense as he beat on Watts outside the ring, and Jarrett pinned David with the stroke. I will say this was certainly an okay match. Rating 3.5 out of 10.
I wish that we had footage of George Goulas just so we could see if who was worse, him or David Flair.
Daddy said sail. Daddy
See,
said
here's the thing.
sail.
Even if George Goulas was the drizzling shits, like he was in a tag team with Bobby Eaton, so he almost certainly had a bunch of matches better than anything David Flair ever did.
Meanwhile, David Flair was in a tag team with Crowbar, which, I love Crowbar. I love Devin Storm, but there's only so much that Devin could do there. And now David Flair's in a tag team with Eric Watts,
I like that stupid, shitty Sicilian stretcher match at Super Brawl 2000.
where they tried to tape the Marmadukes to. Oh, they now the Marmadukes taped them to the stretcher, but the tape
Yeah.
kept breaking.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm sure I've said this before, but I love Daphne and like, the fact and her calling them the Marmadukes. I will never stop calling them the Marmadukes in her honor.
It's awesome. I always had a soft spot for those guys.
He was such a sweetheart too. I'll be honest, like her and I weren't best friends or anything, but that dark side of the ring with her, that's going to be tough for me to watch. Like,
Yeah, I think you probably were too as well, based on the timeline. I was going through my own stuff at that time, and that was
oh yeah,
really, really hard.
yeah, yeah. I forget it was 2020 or 2021, but like at best, I'm still fragile. At worst, I am one bad day away from doing something bad. Um, when that
Yeah.
happened.
Hmm.
Um, so after the match, D'Lo left, and so Ron Killings ran down, raised Jeff Jarrett's hand, and then dropped him with a sit-up power bomb because it's a swerve. Killings
It
left.
is.
Good.
Oh, I don't know. Killings left. The match wasn't bad. I wanted to note. Did you notice that Tenay mentioned that D'Lo was the first person to be both European and Intercontinental Champion, but he did not mention who he beat to accomplish that feat?
I did not notice he said that, but yes, he did become the first Eurocontinental champion. He achieved that feat by defeating Midian for the European title at Fully Loaded 1999. And then 2 days later, he beat Jeff Jarrett.
Yes.
But yeah. So after Killings left, the next generation beat down Jarrett and Dusty because this fucking feud has to continue. Watts puts a noose around Jarrett's neck, beat him to the back of the arena, and then threw him out. Dusty was wearing the crimson mask. Outside, Watts tied Jarrett to a limo and threatened to drive off. He didn't, so he made you wonder why he bothered. The new church waited until the next generation actually left before charging at the SEX locker room, where they were promptly ambushed by Sex. Makes you wonder how long they were waiting for the church to arrive, since it's been like half an hour since they threatened to go confront SEX.
I've never been one to complain about it being ambushed by Sex personally.
What if it's Main Event Glenn Gilbertti and Mike Sanders and the Harris's?
I had a lot of non-consensual sex forced on me during the show.
Siaki then took Hollywood to the ring and ordered Athena to the ring, since this was the pre-planned time where they were scheduled to show Athena's bare breasts. And since Athena knew this was supposed to happen, you wonder why she bothered getting in the ring if she did not want her top ripped off. Athena then refused to rip Holly's top off, so Siaki ordered her to. Athena slapped Sunny, so Siaki gave her the Siakalypse now. David Young decided to be Buzz Killington, ran in and stopped Sunny from doing anything else. After he gave her his deadly Wada maneuver, and I think Siaki left because he was too busy laughing. Just a reminder, Athena, like, she's a local valet. This, in case it's the first time you're listening, because Trae's guilt tripped you into listening, this is not Ember Moon. This is a young lady who is a brunette valet. She was basically the coat girl at ringside in TNA, and for some reason, this crowd always loved her. They cheer for her. They bring signs in. And so Russo started booking her, and every time she gets booked, it's to get her ass kicked.
I couldn't believe that we had Not That Trinity and Not That Athena on the same show.
And you'd think they would wrestle each other at some point for the
No.
Not That TNA Knockouts title.
Oh, I was going to bring it up earlier, but have we checked? I'm pretty sure. Is Kenny Omega still the linear Miss TNA?
I forgot about that. I don't know. It makes sense. I mean, has he lost any matches since his return?
No, he has not.
Yep.
He
So
beat he
Kenny
beat
Omega,
he beat
he
Gabe
defended
Kidd
the
at
title
Wrestle
successfully.
Dynasty.
Yeah. He successfully defended the title against Gabe Kidd and then Konosuke Takeshita in two of the best Miss TNA matches we've ever seen.
No, I thought he won the title from Gabe Kidd. Wasn't Gabe Kidd the linear champion?
Oh, I don't remember. Maybe it was.
You're the one that told me all this shit.
I forgot about it. I'm sorry. The linear Miss TNA title is not usually one that I care to keep track of.
And you call yourself a broadcaster.
I know. So next week, the new church is going to wrestle SEX in the Sadistic and Madness match, and Jerry Lynn's going to wrestle Conan. So we have two matches, one whose rules aren't even properly explained, and then they have a match between two people who you don't really want to see have a match together. Pay your $10 now, ladies and gentlemen.
I am moderately curious to see if Jerry Lynn could get anything out of Conan.
He did wrestle David Flair 4 times.
Yeah, okay. Conan's not as bad as David Flair.
Yes, but Conan's also hurt.
Like, physically, kinetically, he might be worse, but like the thinking and the psychology is not as bad.
Okay. All right, and then we get our main event. It is Raven versus AJ Styles in a number one contenders hardcore ladder match. So just a reminder, D'Lo Brown has a guaranteed title shot. The NWA champion Jeff Jarrett is feuding with about 14 people right now. And now we have Raven and AJ Styles fighting over who is going to get a title shot. And also as a reminder, Raven debuted in this company 2 months ago. And as I've been pointing out every week, there's a reason they never ever mention anything that happened between Raven's debut and the Raven Jarrett match on April 30th.
Because there was a lot of shit.
Yes. So not sure if AJ's turned babyface or not, but in this match, essentially between two heels, the fans took to him as one. And to be fair, a lot of the reason for that is AJ does a lot of neat stuff. And
Really?
yes.
I'll be damned.
Yes. He did a double springboard acai moonsault to Raven while he was laying on a ladder. AJ at one point was being a dick, so he sat on a chair and used Raven as a footrest. He climbed
Yeah.
the ladder, so Raven threw a chair at him. Raven is already bleeding. And apparently 2 weeks ago, during the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match against the Sandman, Raven was busted open so badly that the cut has not closed in 2 weeks and has been spontaneously bleeding outside the ring. Perhaps he should see a doctor.
I'd get that looked at. That's
Yes.
if does he have a vagina on his head? Even a vagina doesn't bleed for 2 weeks straight.
Possibly. This match was AJ hits Raven in the head really hard with shit for a while, and then Raven pulled out a staple gun and stapled AJ in the head. Perhaps he should have used those staples to staple his cut shut.
Yeah.
So AJ starts crawling up the ramp to leave, and Raven follows. Why? The point of this match is to climb the ladder and get the piece of paper hanging above the ring. If AJ Styles doesn't want to be in the match, all you have to do is climb up the ladder and get the piece of paper. Why bother?
Well, yeah.
That came back to bite Raven in the ass as AJ placed Raven on a conveniently placed table at ringside before giving him a top rope leg drop to both the referee and Raven through the table. Now you might be wondering how the hell the referee got involved in this. That's because Raven did not have enough energy to get off the table, but did have enough energy to grab the referee, pull the referee on top of him, and hold him in place without letting him move.
Yes. And AJ said, fuck it.
Yes. At this point, because we can't have a good match, and because he's only been on the show 15 times so far this week, Main Event Glenn Gilbertti decided to interfere at this point and stop AJ from climbing the ladder. Main Event Glenn Gilbertti powerbombed AJ over the top rope and threw a table to the floor. Raven then scurried up the ladder, grabbed the contract, and won. Now, by the way, I should note that Don West pointed out that Raven did not take the clipboard as you were supposed to, and only took the actual contract, and Trae ignored him and talked over him, so this way the audience would not think about that either. I'd like to point out that Don West, who's been in wrestling less than 1 year, already thinks about this more logically than many of the people involved in the show.
Today was not firing on all his mental cylinders here. I'll get to that in just a second. There are a couple things I want to point out about this match. On the positive side, this was a pretty entertaining bloody plunder match. Like, this kind of match is a lot better when it's somebody like Raven who puts some thought into what he does. AJ is AJ, obviously, but this was a Raven match. And after the match, or right before the end of the match, when after Disco Dipshit powerbombed AJ out of the ring through the table, and Raven was making his way back, Trae began to speculate that Raven's ploy with the referee might have been intentional, so that they could take the referee out and Disco could then interfere and help him win. And that makes zero goddamn sense because they both said 27 times in the last 10 minutes that this was an anything goes match.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
It's
yeah,
Tanay that honestly, it's Tanay just trying to come up with some sort of logic in a area where logic does not exist. And I almost tip my hat to him for that. Almost. All right. And so I'd like to point out, like, since TNA's been around for less than a year, they've had to have had at least at least 10 ladder matches in the 9 months, the 37 episodes we've had. There has to have been at least 10 ladder matches. There have not been that many that just had a finish. Like, yeah, Glenn Gilbertti interfered in this, but A, there was a winner of the match, and B, the winner of the match was one of the participants in the match. There was an X Division ladder match last October where Sean Waltman won the X Division title despite not being in the match.
I,
And
uh,
it wasn't even a Hornswoggle thing where like the bell rang while Hornswoggle's running across the ring. You know,
I, uh, I didn't know the bar was this low.
literally the only other ladder match I could think of that had an actual finish was the AJ Styles Jerry Lynn low key ladder match, which by the way was a fucking phenomenal match. Spoiler alert.
I,
Um,
uh, I, I gave my computer an STD to download that off of LimeWire back in the day.
yes. I also once gave my computer an STD for similar reasons. Um, but by the way, 5.5 out of 10, even with main event Glenn Gilbertti interfering here.
I,
And
uh, I gave this my highest rating of the show, a gentleman's 3.
by the way, I hope by episode 110, which I believe is the last weekly pay-per-view, I'll have finally figured out if Glenn has one N or two N's. It's got two N's, but half the time I'm writing one N just because his name's Glenn. It's one N, god damn it.
I can never remember that there's two T's in his last name.
So so to end the show, match quality 4.5 was the average. Overall enjoyment, I don't know. Maybe I was sick. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was just numb to the weekly TNA nonsense. So I overrate the 1 week that is slightly better than usual. Because, yeah, this was a good show by TNA standards. So overall enjoyment, I gave it a 7.0. And
Okay.
future build, because we're finally building to Jarrett versus Raven, even though we're diluting the fuck out of it by adding D'Lo and Eric Watts and SEX. I still gave it a 4.0 out of 10 because we're finally starting to build to what is somehow the most bought weekly pay-per-view that they ever do with Jarrett versus Raven, which does like 30,000 buys.
I mean, I remember being like really hyped for that at the time.
Yeah. But it's like it sounds great and it was and we'll get to it, but it's like the build sucks so much.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're not wrong.
So overall rating was a 5.17. Legitimately, I think that makes it one of the top 5 TNA shows we've seen so far. Just because even the good weeks end up with a 3.
Oh, this just must be fucking dreadful normally.
It is. It really, really fucking is.
Why did you choose to do this?
I don't know. I really wanted to add a third show and like I wanted to do it on the anniversary like we used to do for Mid South and World Class until stupid leap year happened. And like the only show that really was matching up was TNA.
If you would have just waited, we would have had the Friday night spot show, and you would have had your third show, and you wouldn't have had to do that.
But you see, without this show, I wouldn't have asked on Twitter if anybody wanted to do a podcast, and you
That's
wouldn't have
true.
replied second. And I feel bad because, like, now I look back, like I was always wanting to add a co-host, and I don't know, like, why I never thought to ask you. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm happy you
Yeah.
said yes to
Hey,
my
it's
evil plan.
yeah, I'll eventually have to talk about in some detail that as I feel myself very slowly and painfully dragging myself out of a rough patch that I have been in for about, several years now. The fact that so this we're coming up on a year. It'll be a year in May that we've been doing this. And I have amazingly not had a major depressive episode in that time, which is
Yay!
unprecedented. This is unprecedented for me over the last many years. And it's like I don't know. I think it's just because I have every week I have the shows that I have to watch. I can't fucking isolate myself and not do anything. I gave my word that I would watch these shows and I have to do it. And then I don't know. It's helped keep me on track, I think.
That's great. And you know, I this kind of happened to me, and I mean, to be honest, like I know that sometimes you're in a really bad spot, but like this is a lot of what helped me during my really bad time was like I latched on to TNA in 2020, and I latched onto that romance angle between Rosemary and Johnny Bravo, and as fucking stupid as it was, in a lot of ways, I stayed alive, so every week I could watch Impact with Rosemary and Johnny Bravo.
Uh, there is a reason that I watched every single New Japan broadcast in 2021.
I thought it was just because you're you and you were gonna just watch every single episode.
Yeah, I never really did that because I was in grad school and I was so busy I never had the time. But then I believe I watched every broadcast from when they came back from the pandemic to at least end of 2022.
I thought you were gonna say like except during G1 when you would have to mute me on Facebook because I would whatchamacallit, I would be spoiling it because I'd be the only person watching it live.
You still G1ing in 2020?
No, this was because that was when I was just ignoring the world. So I was G1ing from 2013 until 2019.
Yeah. Well,
All right, so that's we might as well bring the show to an end on that happy thought. Um, but yeah,
I
we're
mean,
we're still the second of 4 straight days of you and I together. I mean, in real life, it's you know
yeah,
we're
that's
gonna do a
right.
show tomorrow and then take a 2 day break. But still, people are gonna get sick of the
Yeah.
two of us at some point. But at this point, if you haven't gotten sick of
Nah.
us yet, you know, but so what are the odds that you think I could ever convince you to do another TNA show?
I'm I can't commit to doing another show every week, but if on occasion I need to tag in, I'm happy to do that.
You'll be like Australia getting the live pay-per-views. Cyndi will take
There you
one
go.
day off a month, and you'll come in and talk about main event Glenn Gilbertti.
Maybe I'll come back for the Raven and Jarrett title match.
If you do, you're going to be on a leash because I can't afford to lose a co-host.
Which one are you? Which one are you
Oh,
worried about
oh,
losing?
Cyndi would quit. Cyndi would quit. Like she, her, her, her rants and raves and your rants and raves probably wouldn't mesh very well.
People really enjoy me or don't enjoy me at all.
Yeah. Oh, I think you'd both get along as two people, but as two co-hosts on a wrestling show, you'd have to you'd have to not use any of your medicine that day. We would have to get boring Trae.
No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Somehow, despite the fact that I tried to keep things to an hour like usual, we still went an hour and 40 minutes. Oh well. Um, Thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.